RX Television on RxMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, better known as hashtag Ask Dave, brought to you by Species Nutrition. Visit speciesnutrition.com. I'm your host, Sadiq Faruqi. This is your 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. All your questions on diet, training, supplementation, IFBB pros, competitions. Of course, we're in the thick of the conference, the competition schedule. The Pittsburgh Pro is set to start within the hour. The Arnold, South Africa is tomorrow, so a lot to get to in the world of bodybuilding. If you want to join us, you can ask your question on the Muscle Central Forum on RxMuscle.com. If you're not already a member, it is free to register. If you're watching us on YouTube, you can ask your question on the chat box on the right-hand side of the player. If you're not already subscribed, hit the subscribe button below. You're not going to miss any of our shows, segments, or updates. Of course, Instagram at @official_RxMuscle, Twitter, and our official Facebook page. As we now bring in Dave Palumbo. Dave, a lot going on this weekend. Pittsburgh Pro happening within the hour. And then, of course, Victor Martinez enters tomorrow's show as the prohibitive favorite at the Arnold, South Africa, with Lucas Osladel pulling out.
Yeah, I mean, it's a big deal. A lot of people don't realize we have an Arnold coming up this weekend on the same weekend as the Pittsburgh Pro. It's a pretty decent lineup considering the fact that, a lot of guys are burnt out from competing already. But Victor Martinez is fresh as could be. He's going in there. Juan Morel, don't forget, has already done the Arnold USA. He did the New Zealand Pro. He did the Arnold Brazil. His body could be tired. He didn't really peak for those shows the way I thought he could have. So maybe he will be better in South Africa. But, chances are that Victor Martinez is going to come in with a very fresh-looking physique. And probably, I think that him and Juan have to be considered the favorites. Now, Lucas Osladel was coming off that Arnold Brazil win 2 weeks ago, but he couldn't get into the country. I guess he didn't have a yellow fever vaccination or something like that, as you mentioned to me earlier. And they wouldn't let him fly directly from Brazil to South Africa. So that's kind of a disappointment because I was really looking forward to seeing how Lucas would stack up against a guy like Victor Martinez in the lineup. He already took out Juan Morel in Brazil. So it's going to be a good show. How good, it's impossible to tell. Obviously, we had Jeff Beckham in that lineup as well, and it should be pretty competitive. So once again, I think this is Victor's show to lose. If he goes in there and wins dominantly, qualifies for the Olympia again, I think you got to put Victor up there on your top 10 list in the Olympia guys of being a surprise. I think he's going to be better than people think. He's been making improvements steadily over the last couple of years. He's not a guy who has injuries anymore. I think we're going to see an excellent Victor Martinez there.
Let's get to the questions we saw on the Muscle Central Forum on RxMuscle.com and go to Jack. Dave, is it true that using microwaves to heat food all the time could cause cancer? It is a common perception. What say you?
Microwave ovens cause molecules to vibrate faster. And the faster they vibrate, the more they get heated up. And that's really how it heats up food or it cooks food, is it just makes the molecules vibrate. There's nothing wrong with that. That's not going to make the food tainted or anything. It's not going to ruin or denature, or destroy the DNA of the molecule. It's just heating it up. Now, where the problem could occur, and this is what big Evan Centopani, pet peeve of his, was that when you put plastic in the microwave, which they, originally that was the whole thing, put plastic in there. That's the way to cook in the microwave. If it heats up the plastic and some of that, I guess you could say, I don't know if they're carcinogenic, but they're not healthy for you. The molecules in the plastic themselves leach into the food. That could be dangerous. So the common consensus now is when you heat stuff in a microwave, use glass or ceramic. That's what I did. I switched because I was like, you know what? It makes sense that there could be an issue with that. So I use the microwave all the time, but I cook in either a ceramic bowl or a glass bowl, and I don't think that there's anything to worry about with respect to doing that. Now, look, also, if you got a plastic bowl and you put it in the microwave for 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15, 20 seconds to warm something up, you're not going to be putting a tremendous amount of anything into your food. If you're cooking for 10 minutes, rice or something like that for a long period of time, then you don't want to use plastic.
Let's go to GV. Dave, any dieting tips for females with Hashimotos, thyroiditis, in parentheses, autoimmune hypothyroid, leaning out for figure?
There's surprisingly a lot of Hashimoto's thyroiditis that I've seen in competing athletes. It's mostly women, seems to run, but I've seen a couple of guys with it. What it is an autoimmune disease where your body's immune system attacks the thyroid gland and destroys it. And so what happens ultimately is that you need to go on thyroid replacement, and most of the time they put you on Synthroid, which is T4, which is the correct protocol, and then your body can convert the T4 into T3 as it needs to. It's hard to take T3 in replacement therapy because you don't know how much you really need. The great thing about T4 is that your body will convert just what it needs and it won't overconvert, and so that's a great way to replace thyroid hormone. And once again, it's one of these hormones that's really easy to replace. Now, assuming you're on the right replacement dosage, dieting shouldn't really be affected by it because you should be just like a normal person once you're on replacement. It's only when you're not, before you've been diagnosed and your thyroid's low, that you might have a disadvantage. But so being on thyroid replacement, as a matter of fact, being on thyroid replacement might even be better, okay, than not being on thyroid, because you always have enough T4 present. Now, whether you're converting that T4 to T3 is another story. And I do know people who have Hashimoto's who are on T4 replacement, Synthroid, and they sometimes supplement with thyroid, with Cytomel, T3. So there's nothing wrong with that. It's when they take the T3 away, after the diet's over, they have to stay on their T4, obviously, their Synthroid, because that's their replacement dose. So there really shouldn't be any disadvantages. I diet a lot of women on very low carb, ketogenic diets, high protein, moderate fat. It seems to work well, not for people, only for people with Hashimoto's, but for women who don't have Hashimoto's.
Let's go to IP1211. Hate this show more than Blackman. Love striated glutes. My question is, Dave, how would you run a cycle with Test E, Trenbolone, and Masterone? And do your athletes use Clen through the whole prep or just the last few weeks, and how?
Well, I'm not going to write a whole cycle for this guy. I'm a big believer in about 250 to 350 milligrams of test every other day. Usually when propionate's taken, it's 200 milligrams every other day. That's usually enough because it's very fast acting. I don't even remember, I think it was Tren he mentioned. I usually run anywhere from 50 to 100 milligrams every other day. Clenbuterol, I run clenbuterol most of the diet with prep with my athletes, 20 micrograms twice a day, starting with that. Working my way up to, if necessary, it depends on how fast the person's metabolism, how they respond. I might work up to 20 micrograms 6 times a day max.
Let's go to biggies. Dave, when using painless pumps to bring up biceps, is getting a deep tissue massage on the arms a bad idea? Could it cause the oil to move and make for unpleasant looking biceps? Thanks and love the show.
Whenever using any of what I recommend, the site injection oils, there's only really 2 that you should really ever consider using because they're the only 2 that really have any science behind them. That's Chris Clark's original Synthesize Pump and Pose, and the painless pumps, which is the other version. That's the version that's very similar to it, not quite as potent, but it does not hurt. It's pain-free for certain. So a lot of guys like that. I sell both of them at DavePalumbo.com, by the way. And like I said before, if anyone wants the protocols, I could send them to you for free. I'm not looking to charge anyone. The protocols, you can send me an email at huge285@AOL.com. Now, to answer the question, when you inject them into your arms, the oil will disperse itself. That just happens. You don't have to massage it. You don't have to push on it. Likewise, if you get a massage, it's not going to make the oil go away faster. Okay. It's just going to disperse it, which is sometimes nice because a lot of times, if you put too much in one area and you start getting a little hardness there because sometimes some scar tissue can build up, or it could just be too much oil in there. So it's sometimes once in a while to get a massage and break that up is a good idea. You're not wasting it if that's the question.
Let's go to Mean Green 123. Dave, do you see benefits to using Sermorelin? TRT doctor recommended. I tried it, but haven't found too much research on the drug.
Sermorelin is growth hormone releasing hormone. It's very similar to the peptides that they have out on the market, the GHRP6s and GHRP2s and ipamorelin, CJC, 495. All these different peptides pretty much are trying to mimic this, growth hormone releasing hormone. We call it GHRH. Sermorelin is a synthetically made, version of GHRH, and when you put it into your body, it will stimulate the pituitary gland to release growth hormone. Now, how much growth hormone you release is very variable because it depends genetically how much your body can actually produce given a given dose of GHRH. My belief is that most people produce the same amount of GHRH in their body, but the variability, the genetic variability, is how much growth hormone the pituitary releases in response to that. So I think some people are hyper responders, hyper releases, they release a lot more GH and that's why they grow better. And other people are under producers and that's why they don't grow as well. And I'm talking about not only muscle growth, but height when you're a kid. I think tall people just produce more growth hormone, by nature, just genetically. And I think it's because the pituitary gland in those people can respond better to the signal. Now, once again, taking GHRH or sermorelin is going to give you an increase in GH, but we don't know how much of it. And it's certainly not even on the same level as you would get if you took 2 to 4 IUs of injectable GH. Because remember, if you take actual growth hormone, you don't have to worry about releasing it, you're actually taking the compound. So, 4 IUs of GH is almost impossible to naturally, secrete in your own body by taking a dose of sermorelin. So remember, they're not the same, but they're good. For hormone replacement purposes, for regeneration purposes, sermorelin is fantastic.
You're watching Ask Dave on RxMuscle.com, brought to you by Species Nutrition. We jump over now to our Instagram questions and go to Jimmy.Broderick. Dave, thoughts on hydrogenated oils?
Well, anytime you hydrogenate anything, whether it be coconut oil, hydrogenated soybean oil, what you're basically doing is you're taking a polyunsaturated or essential fatty acid and you're converting it to what we call a trans fat. Okay, now there's two types, if anyone out there has taken organic chemistry, there's two different types of molecules. One is called the cis configuration, CIS. That's the configuration that most of us see in nature. And then there's the opposite, what they call the trans configuration, which is the mirror image of it. I always equate it to if you know anything about comic books, the Bizarro world and the regular world. So they're the mirror image of each other. When molecules are in the cis configuration, fatty acids specifically, let's take corn oil for instance. In the cis configuration, it's liquid, okay? When you convert it to the trans configuration, okay, which is what they do when they hydrogenate something, you make it a solid. So people who like to have butter, okay, but don't want to eat butter, they can eat butter, they can eat a polyunsaturated butter. They can turn corn oil into margarine. And that's what the hydrogenation process usually does. Now you might see hydrogenation in foods too because it thickens things up. The problem is when you use the trans configuration of a fat, also known as a trans fat, that's what it's short for, you're getting a fatty molecule, acid molecule that looks like the real one, but it doesn't function like the real one. So when the body tries to take these essential fats and put them into the membranes of cells, muscle cells, skin cells, they don't function well. And a lot of times, because they don't function right, okay, you can get cancer formations, you can get wrinkly skin, you can get poor muscle repair, okay, because you're using basic raw materials that are not adequate. It's like defective parts almost. So the best advice I can give you is stay away from trans fats in your diet. They're really dangerous for your health. Anything that says the word hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated qualifies as a trans fat.
Let's go to rfitness03. Dave, you suck. You never answer my questions. And Sid, you're the biggest sucker of all. And then he puts in LOL. If you put LOL for your own joke, that's kind of a tool move. Please answer. Dave, how long can one use trenbolone acetate, of course, along with testosterone, without a break, like 16 to 20 weeks?
I never really believed, I used it for long periods of time at one point in my career, but I think it's a little dangerous in the sense that you don't really sleep well in it. It does raise your blood pressure and irritability a little bit. So it's probably not the smartest thing to do to take it for more than 8 to 10 weeks. I usually, when I help guys get ready for competitions, I usually do an 8 to 10 week last end of the cycle. They're on the trenbolone and testosterone so they can get the most bang for their buck. And then afterwards, I take them off of it. It's just not a good drug to be on. You don't feel good on it. And once again, if blood pressure elevates, you're putting stress on your kidneys. A lot of people think trenbolone is kidney toxic. It's not. It's indirectly kidney toxic because if it raises your blood pressure, that's toxic to your kidneys. It's going to break down your kidney tubules. So I would suggest 8 to 10 weeks on trenbolone and then take a break.
Wide back, Zach, how many grams of protein would you consider, quote unquote, too much on a ketogenic diet for a 220-pound man, 15% body fat considering carbs, are under 35 grams a day.
Yeah, obviously the ketogenic diet today is all the rage. I've been talking about it for 25 years, but everyone seems to be jumping on the ketogenic bandwagon, and that's good because it works. Keeping insulin levels low really helps with fat burning, and being in a state of ketosis where your brain is burning fats for fuel instead of carbs is going to make you feel better because you never run out of fats and you never run out of fuel for the brains, and your blood sugar levels are stable all the time, so you don't get moody, mood swings, that kind of thing. So a ketogenic diet is great in terms of weight loss purposes. Now I said I blocked out the question already. What was the question?
No, the question was what you would consider quote unquote.
Oh, how much protein?
Okay. Ketogenic diet, 220-pound man, 15% body fat, carbs under 35 grams a day.
I talked to my dad a lot on the phone. He's starting to wear off of me. I'm running out of memory. But the problem is that a lot of people think now this is the new bro science online. Eat too much protein, bro. You're gonna gluconeogenesis. You're gonna turn these amino acids into carbs. The body will only turn amino acids. First of all, the body's always turning amino acids into carbs in the liver to a certain degree to keep blood sugar levels stable. It's a way of preventing blood sugar from dropping too much. But the body will only convert excessively eaten protein into carbs in the absence of a fuel source. What does that mean? That means if you eat meals that only contain protein and don't have any fat or carbs in them, your body needs a fuel source, so it's going to convert some of the protein into carbs. Even if you're eating 20 grams of protein at a meal and you're not eating any fuel source with it, your body can turn some of that, and it might up to 50% turn it into carbs. Okay, so guys that try to do ketogenic diets just by eating protein and vegetables every single day are invariably might not even be in ketosis because their body's going to be converting huge amounts of amino acids, protein that you're eating, into carbohydrates. And then that's going to keep you out of ketosis because your brain is going to see all these carbs and it's just going to eat those. So what I explain to people is if you eat enough fat at every meal with your carbs, okay, the body will use the fat for fuel and the protein will be, I guess you could say, spared for muscle building and repair. And that's what we want. And what's the right amount? About 1 gram to 1.5 grams of protein per pound that you weigh. So if you're a 200-pound guy, you can eat 300 grams of protein. You probably can eat even a little more than that and not have a problem. The problem occurs with weight loss is if you eat too much protein, you might just be eating too much energy, consuming too much energy, having too many calories, and in which case your body's not going to burn fat if you have an excessive amount of energy being consumed. So if I have a woman on 4.5 ounces of protein a meal and she's eating 10, okay, that's double the amount of protein she needs. Her body's going to use some of that for fuel, and her body's not going to dip into stored body fat. So I think there's a misnomer. I think the problem is that if you're eating enough fat, if you overeat protein, the problem is that there's too many calories coming in. If you undereat fat and you eat protein, okay, your body can convert that even in small amounts. So understand what's going on biochemically. That's why when I give my secrets to becoming a diet guru course and I explain all this science, people are like, oh man, I didn't know any of this. I'm just reading this stuff online and I'm scared. I'm eating too much protein. I'm not doing things right. There's no way you can screw up a ketogenic diet. Okay, it's 0.5 gram of fat per pound, up to 3/4 of a gram of fat per pound, and it's 1 to 1.5 grams of protein per pound. If you do that and eat no starchy carbs, just green vegetable type stuff, very low net carb vegetables, you'll be in ketosis. You don't have to test the strips or anything like that. You'll be in ketosis. There's no doubt about that.
Let's go to flexing_Joe. Dave, why do you think there was a higher caliber of bodybuilder 15 to 20 years ago? You can watch old videos and there's unbelievable detail, but the cameras are better now. Is it drugs, training, foods? What is it?
Well, I think that there's a tremendous amount of talent in the bodybuilding world right now. I think if you think back to the 80s or 70s, 80s, even 90s, there were great guys, but there wasn't a lot of them. Okay, there was the top 15 guys in the world were great. The top 15 guys in the world today are great too. There's just so many more people competing that you just see a lot of guys that aren't that great and don't look that good. There's a lot of shows, way more shows than there used to be, and you can't fill these shows up. So some of the shows suck. competitor quality-wise, and some of them are great, and that's just the way it goes when you want to hold that many shows and give out that many pro cards. But I think that the top echelon of the bodybuilding world and the classic physique world are fantastic. Also, don't forget there's more divisions nowadays. Back up until just recently, there was only one men's bodybuilding division. That's it. So now you have men's physique, so you're losing some guys that could be great bodybuilders to physique. You're losing some guys now to classic physique even. So, there's a bigger pool of people, but there's also more classes to compete in and way more shows.
Let's go to Brad McCaff. Brad McCaff. Dave, thoughts on EQ over Deca for off-season or pre-contest?
I think they're kind of comparable. So I kind of switch around with them off-season and pre-contest. I like EQ because it makes you really hungry and makes you strong and vascular, which is good for pre-contest and off-season. I like Deca because it gives you great pumps. You grow well on it, very anabolic drug, but it's also anti-inflammatory for your joints. So I like to start the contest prep with a little Deca just to keep, because as you deplete fluid out of your body because you're eating lower carbs, sometimes the joints get sore. So Deca is a nice alleviant to that. Also in the off season, at some point I like to use Deca also just because, especially when you're lifting real heavy, it's going to make the joints feel a lot better. So I think those two drugs are great drugs to use pre-contest and off season, and I do make use of them in the protocols that I write up.
John_Nielsen, Dave, would you recommend Fiberlyze for someone who suffers with chronic constipation?
I would suggest Fiberlyze for people who don't suffer from chronic constipation. Everyone needs to take a fiber supplement, and they need to take a dual fiber supplement. What do I mean by that? I mean soluble and insoluble fiber. Now, while it's way more important to get the soluble fiber, and you do need some insoluble, that's why I developed Fiberlyze. It's funny because I always knew Fiberlyze would be a great product. It just took 10 years, to finally hit the market. We sell so much. It's almost my best-selling product. My protein is the only product that sells more than the Fiberlyze because a lot of people understand that the fiber is so important to a person's not only health. It's important to fat burning because it keeps blood sugar levels lower. It's important to keep cholesterol levels lower. But more importantly, it keeps the colon healthy. It helps move waste through your colon at an optimal rate. Remember, the longer stuff sits in your colon, the more likely you are to absorb toxins, okay? The more likely you are to get stagnation in the colon, and the more likely you are to have problems later in life with cancer and polyp formation and stuff like that. You want the waste out of there. Okay, you don't want to reabsorb that waste that's sitting in there because it's there too long. And a lot of people who suffer from chronic constipation is because your colon muscle is weak. And fiber will build that up, but you have to do it gradually. So in other words, if you buy a jug of my Fiberlyze, you don't want to start off with one scoop twice a day. You start off with half a scoop once a day. Then after a few days, you go to half a scoop twice a day. Then one scoop and a half a scoop, and then one scoop and one scoop finally. And you should do that over the course of about 2-3 weeks until you build up to the full servings, one serving twice a day, and you stay on that, how long? Forever. I hate to say it, you gotta take fiber for the rest of your life. You're crazy if you don't do it. It's such an easy fix. There's so many people out there with colorectal cancers, and I mean, those things are just vicious. They rip through, ravage your body, they spread, and you die. Who the hell wants to die of a colorectal cancer when you can take a fiber supplement and never get it?
We have two similar questions. One is from Ross Flanagan, and the other is from the quote-unquote species nutrition world champion, Alan Marashi. So Alan's question is, Dave, of all the clients you've had over the years, who is the hardest to get in shape and who is the easiest? And then Ross Flanagan, have you ever told a client not to get on stage because they weren't in shape?
Yeah. Juan Morel, the easiest person to get in shape. That's a no-brainer. And the hardest, I have had a couple of guys that were really hard. Akeem Williams is freaking tough, because his body's very resistant the last couple of weeks before a show. He loses weight early in the diet, and he's just really tough. He's over there with the Camel Crew. No pun intended, I have the shirt on. He's with the Camel Crew training with them. So they're working on his diet for the New York Pro. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with him. But they're going to find out. The last couple of weeks are tough. And Rashid Aldraker was tough too. He also, I was surprised at how hard I had to push him the last, 3 to 4 weeks to get him in his best shape of his life. Guys that build muscle real easy sometimes don't let go of fat so easily, especially that last little bit. I'm sure there were people that were harder. I just don't remember because I've helped so many people over the years, but those are the ones that come to recent memory. Now, the other question from Ross, another client of mine, was what?
Yes. So have you ever told a client not to get on stage because they weren't in shape?
Yes. And 50% of the time they listen and 50% of the time they don't. And yes, I've told clients not to get on stage. They said they wanted to do the show anyway. Of course, I still helped them. And they wound up winning the show. Not because they were the best, just because they were the best guy there. They weren't, in my mind, in the best shape of their life. But so it does happen. But if I don't think a person's going to be their best, or close to their best, I usually tell them don't do the show. I've said it to people before. We've pushed shows back, and usually, look, I don't do that unless it's absolutely necessary. And like I said, not everyone listens. Some people say, look, I want to do the show anyway. I have family coming in. I already paid. We do what we got to do. But I have told people that, yeah.
Let's go to Julian_Layerberg. Dave, do I need protein the last 2 days before a contest while I carb up?
Yeah, that's a mistake people make. You don't want to remove your protein because you're still repairing muscle tissue, okay? And your body still has a protein requirement. If you didn't work out ever, you still have a protein requirement in your body. You're replacing hair, nails, skin, the internal lining of your intestinal tract. Plus, protein tempers the insulin response, meaning if you eat carbs alone, you produce a lot of insulin. If you eat carbs with protein, your body absorbs the protein, the carbs a little slower, so you don't produce as much insulin at one time. It stabilizes your blood sugar. So yes, do not reduce protein intake.
Hardbody_coaching. Dave, I've recently started drinking alkaline water and noticed some stomach discomfort after some research. It seems that alkaline water has a negative effect on protein digestion. What are your thoughts on this, as I am a bodybuilder with a high protein diet?
Yeah, well, you don't. When I recommend people to use alkalinized water, you're not drinking the water while you're eating meals, because when you're eating protein meals, your body is acidifying the stomach because the acid helps the digestive enzymes that break down the protein in the stomach work. So you don't want to neutralize those by drinking alkaline water. So the alkaline water you want to drink between meals. So when you're not eating food, you drink the alkaline water. I drink it first thing in the morning. I drink a whole 8 to 10 ounces of alkaline water before I go to bed. I mix it with my Fiberlize and I drink that before bed. During the day, if I remember, I try to drink 1 or 2 glasses as well in between meals. That's the key. Matter of fact, I just started carrying, and I don't know if we have it up at DavePalumbo.com yet. We should have it within the next week. It's called Santa Via. It looks like a Brita water filter. It's about this big and about this wide. You just put tap water in there, and what it does is it filters the water like a Brita filter would do, and then it alkalinizes it, and it will keep the alkalinity of the water. It's brilliant. It literally, in 3 minutes you have alkaline water, and it's in a pitcher, so you can pour it as much as you want. You don't have to keep trying to make it in a little shaker bottle like I used to sell, or I still sell them. The pH 9 generators. It's a little bit of a pain in the neck. This is brilliant. I don't put my water in the refrigerator. I like room temperature water, so I just have it on my counter. I'm constantly filling it up with the sink water, and I'm drinking alkaline water in between meals and before bed and when I wake up in the morning. So it's brilliant. For $45, I think it is. It's a steal, and I think you only have to replace the filters every 2 or 3 months. So it's really the cheapest way to make alkalinized water.
Raider Clan 94, a recent MRI showed me with a small annular tear at my L5-S1, and I'm not interested in surgery. Assuming I need to avoid squats and deadlifts, what exercises would you recommend for an effective leg workout? Would leg presses be safe to avoid aggravation, or maybe hacks are a better option? Hate giving up squats, but at 39 years young, it's an acceptable trade-off to save a serious back injury. Appreciate any advice. I'm guessing, Dave, maybe you should just give a little explainer on what an annular tear is. Some might be unaware of what that is.
To be honest with you, I'm not sure, but in the lumbar, sacral area region of what he's talking about, I'm assuming he has some kind of a support, ligament that has torn down there, and obviously he has instability there, and it's obviously causing him pain. And it could get worse, so he obviously doesn't. I think it's the annularis muscle there. I'm not really sure what. I didn't really understand the term, but that's what it's. There's some kind of tear going on in that area, and that's what's important. The question is pertinent to what exercises he can do. I think hack squats is a great alternative to squatting. I'm not a big fan of the 45-degree leg press, to be honest with you. I like the straight-on leg press. Even though sometimes you have to use these AFS machines where you lay in them and you have a weight stack, you get a if you put the weight heavy enough, you could get a great leg workout with that thing. That's what I use. And I've used it the last several years. I like a straight-on leg press. Steve Weinberger has a great AFS straight-on leg press in his, I guess they call it a horizontal leg press, in his Beth Francis Powerhouse Gym. And whenever I'm there, I'll use that one. That's terrific also. I just feel like there's more stress on the quads when you're going straight as opposed to when you're pushing up at a 45-degree angle.
Let's go to D Squared Fit. Dave, what's the benefit of using the sauna during contest prep? Science or myth?
I don't have a problem with using a sauna for recovery purposes because it heats the muscles up, you feel a little better. It's not burning any fat. You sitting in the sauna sweating and dehydrating yourself is just dehydrating yourself. You're not burning fat, and you're gonna feel worse if you're dehydrated. The worst thing you wanna do is walk around dehydrated because that puts you in a very catabolic state, plus you get a headache. So the sauna is really doing nothing. You know what I used to do when I used to diet, when I was dieting real hard and I would be cold a lot of times? Sometimes you go to the gym, it's the winter, you're freezing, and I just feel like I'm not gonna get a good workout. I might sit in like a sauna for seriously, walk in there and just stand in there for 2 minutes to warm up my muscles and then go train. I wouldn't even sweat really. So other than that, I don't know. I think it's for old guys. I'm not really sold on the sauna.
Rust Belt Chrome, right lat flares out more than the left lat. Is there something I can do to fix this problem?
I would try to do unilateral back movements, meaning that you're going to work each side independently. The hammer strength machines are great for doing that, so you can do one arm at a time, do one arm dumbbell rows at a time. You could even get on a seated cable machine and do one arm, have them working individually. The key is you don't want to do things that use compound movements, all the time because you're obviously favoring the side that's better than the other side. So if you get your compound movements over with first and then go to a lot of unilateral stuff, one arm rows, hammer strength one arm at a time, seated rows one arm at a time, and that should catch the other side up. You might even want to do a few extra sets for the weaker side.
I have a good one here. It's an interesting one from Caleb Grits. Dave, when you dieted down for shows, did you ever change your training styles or did you stay heavy and low reps, or did you just shorten your rest times?
I probably shortened my rest times only because of the fact that I had less energy and I wanted to get the workout done. I don't know. I don't think I'm on screen, Johnny. And what I did was still lifted heavy. I might have cut my volume down toward the end of the diet because I just didn't have the endurance. But I still lifted heavy as I could. Now my weights did go down because I just wasn't as strong when I was lighter, but not a lot. I still was squatting, real heavy weight, over 500 pounds for reps. I was still, benching almost, 350. I might have, maybe my weights dropped a little bit, but I didn't purposely lighten the weights up, and I didn't purposely increase repetitions. What I did was I lifted as heavy as I possibly could. I just got the workouts done as quick as possible, but I didn't rush them to the point where I wouldn't take enough rest. Because if you don't take enough rest and you shorten the rest times, you're not going to lift as heavy. And if you're not lifting as heavy because you're just not resting enough, then you're going to lose muscle.
Take a couple of more. Desmond Bam Burr. Dave, I hate your show more than Boston Lloyd hates men's physique. What are your thoughts on triple extension movements, example, power clean, snatches, split jerk, etc., for bodybuilding? Do you think any benefit would apply?
They're not bad. You're not gonna. Any movements, strength movements are good. I just think that it's risky. You can hurt yourself because there's a lot of ballistic, explosiveness to these movements, and sometimes bodybuilders are just not developed that way. And you could pop something. You can snap a bicep. To me, it's not worth it. I think there's plenty of conventional mass building, bodybuilding movements that you can do to build the muscle that you don't have to do these, explosive type, off the floor, clean and jerk type stuff. Because the term jerk itself implies that you're jerking the weight, and at some point you could hurt yourself.
Danny the Gift, hey Dave, to which degree can HGH, quote unquote, heal cartilage damage or encourage the growth of cartilage tissue? I'm looking for treatment alternatives since no one wants to do surgery on my knee.
GH could help. It's probably not going to regenerate the meniscus in your knee. It's probably not going to grow cartilage on the humerus of your shoulder like mine, or it's not going to grow cartilage on the femur bone of your thigh to help lubricate, that knee joint. So it can't hurt. It could maybe curtail further damage, but it's not going to regrow anything. Okay. Now, if you had to damage something, if you injured something and what it was still connected, the GH would help that heal quicker, obviously. But if you tear a muscle, it's not going to, unless it's physically reattached, the GH can't do anything to help heal it. Now, if you go and get bicep tendon, rupture surgery, and they reattach your bicep, and you take GH after the surgery, it will help you repair the injury quicker, of course. But it's not going to reattach that muscle for you.
Vino, like 3 O's at the end of his name, does taking cholesterol medication, in parentheses statins, affect the use of testosterone?
I don't think statin usage will affect the usage of testosterone. In other words, if you're injecting testosterone, it's going to work. But if you're a natural competitor and you're taking statins, you're not going to produce testosterone at the same rate, because statins inhibit cholesterol synthesis, and cholesterol is the building blocks to all the steroidal hormones in the body. So I'm not a big believer in statins. Even people who have blockages in their arteries, I'm not a real big believer in statins. I'm a believer in changing your diet. That will lower your cholesterol. Stop eating as much sugar, eat more healthy, essential fatty acids in your diet, more monounsaturated fats. I like to address it from a dietary standpoint. Statins are just a Band-Aid on a wound that's just not going to go away.
We'll take 1.5 more questions. Sam Gibson, Anadrol for pre-contest to stay full. Will it hold excess water, or is it best to come off a week before?
Yeah, you want to stop Anadrol 2 weeks before a competition if you're going to use it. I'm not a real big fan of Anadrol usage, but it can definitely be used pre-contest, because it doesn't matter if it blunts your appetite, because you're always hungry pre-contest. But if you start feeling sick from it, I would stop it. If you get an upset stomach from it, I would stop it. If it's making you not be able to eat even your diet food, I would stop it. As far as fluid retention, when you're on a low-carb diet, which even people who diet on some carbs are on a low-carb diet, you're not going to hold much water from Anadrol, but I would still stop it 2 weeks before a show.
And the last one from Lincoln Park Muscle. Now, we've gotten this question often, but I'll read it on air this time. Dave, where can we get some RxMuscle t-shirts?
I think I still have a couple maybe for sale at davepalumbo.com. We haven't really printed any new ones yet. I'm actually printing new Species Nutrition shirts that'll be available at speciesnutrition.com. I don't know if we're going to make new RX ones. If I want to get like something really cool, I don't know. I got to think of something cool maybe to print for RxMuscle.
You mean to tell me that a hashtag #YCutback t-shirt with RxMuscle would not sell?
It might. I don't know. It's funny, but it's a pain in the ass to have to ship t-shirts just because, we're doing them ourselves here. So I love this Camel Crew shirt. I've worn it a couple times already. I got to find Bader Badai's design artist there. Maybe he can make us an RxMuscle shirt. I also wanted to plug one more thing, Sid. I wanted to plug the water filters again, because Johnny has a picture he's going to show them. That's the Santa Via water filter that alkalinizes the water. Once again, it'll be available at davepalumbo.com. Probably by either, if it's not by this weekend, probably by the next week. We just got to put them up. I have them all stocked here, ready to be shipped out, and it's a terrific, way easy thing. You just take that white lid off and you pour the water in there, and it filters right through the filter. And as long as there's enough water in the actual filter to touch the filter that hangs down, the water will stay alkalinized, and it even becomes more alkalinized the longer it's in there. So terrific product. Guys, I'm sorry that we had to do Ask Dave on Friday this week. We had a busy week, and hopefully we'll get back on schedule next week. Sid was in Las Vegas, Nevada, and partying it up with his beautiful wife. And Sid, did you have a good time in Vegas?
Had a blast. I mean, it was actually my first time in Vegas that was not there for the Olympia. So, I mean, you know how it is. When we're there, you, me, Johnny Styles, the rest of our team, I mean, we're working from the moment we land. So, you know, at night we get to walk the strip a little bit, check places out, but it's not, you know, a quote-unquote vacation. This is the first time I went there as, I guess, under the auspice of a vacation of my wife's first time there. So, you know how it is. There's a lot of walking around, a lot of things to do, a lot of places to see. Not a relaxing vacation, but very, very fun. It is Vegas. It's the adult playground of the world. So we had a blast, and it was a lot of fun. But, you know, next week, Dave, we have a fully loaded schedule. I believe we're going to have another Iron Debate. We're going to bring back Versus. We're going to have a chock-full lineup where we're going to try whoever comes out victorious from the Arnold, South Africa, perhaps even from the Pittsburgh Pro Show. We know some of the top competitors in the Classic Physique division as well. We'll be lining up some episodes of Live Weight for next week as well.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to it. I know we have Nicholas Vuliat as well next week, and it should be a good one. Also,
So
I want to just mention one thing about the New York Pro, because the New York Pro is coming up on May 20th. That's in 2.5 weeks, I believe. I'll be out there with Johnny Styles. You'll be there, of course. We have Chris Aceto will be there, and we'll be covering that event, which is now in the White Plains, Westchester County Center, which is actually where they hold my reptile show. So I'm looking into seeing. Usually the reptile show is on Sunday, so I might go there Saturday. I'll see the show, New York Pro, and then the following day I can go hit the reptile show. So 2 for 1. I'm looking forward to it. I'm actually going to be in New York this weekend for 1 or 2 days. See my dad. Maybe I'll stop by Steve's gym, and we'll see what the updates are in the New York Pro, if we got any late entries, that kind of thing.
So big upcoming week on RxMuscle.com, as well as the RX Television YouTube channel. So keep it locked, RxMuscle.com and RX Television. For Dave Palumbo and Johnny Styles, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next time.